board meeting for February 2nd, 2021 to order. If you would, please silence your cell phones. We begin each meeting with an invocation, which will be led by Dr. Marvin Elliott, the Executive Vice President of Johnson University, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led by Pam Haas, our Performing Arts Resource Teacher. National Anthem will be performed by Giselle Quiones, an 8th grade student from OXA. Our mission statement will be read by Chris Burns, our Performing Arts Resource Teacher, and our translation services will be conducted by Dr. Belinda Reyes, our Executive Director for Multicultural. So if you would, please rise with me.
Let us pray. Father God, I thank you for the mission that is shared between the university I serve and our neighbors here at the school district. We all treasure the opportunity to educate students and to impact the lives of young people in a positive way. We are grateful for the frontline workers who make that possible, teaching and leading and serving in our school buildings and classrooms across the county. We pray for your protection and your hand upon them in a special way during these uncertain pandemic times. I thank you for the men and women of this school board who give of themselves to serve our youngest citizens and to lead the district toward excellence in education. It is my prayer tonight that we might all, as administrators and leaders, faculty and staff, cause our own desires to be secondary to the education and needs of the children we serve. Father God, bless this meeting and all the activities that accompany it, that the mission might be accomplished and you might be glorified. We ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have a video now.
Mission statement of Osceola County School District is inspiring all learners to reach their highest potential as responsible, productive citizens.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Belinda Reyes, and I'm here to provide translation services. Muy buenas tardes a todos. Mi nombre es Belinda Reyes y estoy aquí para proveer el servicio de traducción.
Thank you, Dr. Reyes. This brings us to the comment portion from our board and superintendent. So I will start to my right, Mr. Bass.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Happy Groundhog Day. See, shadowed? I didn't see it.
Yes.
On and off, like everything else.
I know. Thank all of you for attending tonight. I hope you and your family and everyone is safe and well. We'll always start off my comments by thanking our teachers and our support staff for all those for the contributions they make to our children. Board, I wrapped up our community conversation at Topeka on Thursday. Quite a bit. It was a long day. I was there from I think 8:30 to 7, something like that. 36 adults and 12 students participated, which was a gift. Oh, it was great. It was a great turnout. Came up with a lot of great ideas. It was fun listening to the students. The students know a lot, but a lot of them were talking about the dress code and the lunches, and so some of the ideas were kind of far-reaching, but I think some of the others were very attainable. So it's going to be interesting, and looking forward to that our final plan and all of that. Spring is in the air. I want to throw this little tidbit out. I want to thank Ms. Hillary DeLuca with her ESC department. Everybody knows I'm big into St. Cloud Little League. I was 25 years there. We started a program several years back called our Challenger Baseball, and it's a division of our Little League that's centered around children and adults with special needs. And we have athletes with cerebral palsy and Down syndrome, spina bifida, autism, paralysis, things like that. And we provide them with uniforms, equipment, and the buddies, and we have a formal program for them. And it's so rewarding to see those kids being out on the field and having a little bit of normalcy in their life. Equally is nice seeing the parents in the stand watching those children and having a little bit of normalcy, and it's great. So spring signups are for that, and I want to thank Mr. Luca for getting that out to the district. And last, I'm stealing some of the chairman's thunder because we have a guest in the room. Every meeting, we invite a student representative from the district to attend our meeting and basically sit and at the end of the meeting, after they get to review everything, and then tell us what they think about it. This young man sitting you raise your hand. I've known this young man since he was probably maybe 5 years old. He and my daughter are very good friends. He's representing Harmony High School. Such a go-getter, such a great young man. I think he's number 4 in your class right now.
Yes.
That's quite an accomplishment because there's a lot of talented kids out there. So if you would help me welcome Mr. Tristan Gross today.
Thank you. Yeah, it's unfortunately 25 years in Little League, and you're still not the home run leader there. From what I
Listen,
understand.
if you can coach and umpire a Little League game, this is nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, also I'd like to say thank you. This has been a trying week, and I hope that as everyone gets their chance to speak, that you keep in mind that everyone in the room here is interested in the welfare of our kids. That we're all here for the same purpose, and at the end of the day, everyone here cares about every kid that's on campus, and I think that's the best place to start. I know as a dad, the things that happened this week have been impactful to the community, and impactful to my kids, and impactful to the students all over Osceola County, and impactful to our community. So I just want to say that we're here to hear you, and we acknowledge that there's a time to speak and there's a time to be heard. And so I'm acknowledging to everyone that this is the time to hear. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I do echo the sentiments of my colleagues, of course, with regards to, the topic of the week. And so with that, I just want to thank the folks that I have spoken to this week and have reached out to me personally, or that I have reached out to, including students in our district, to just sort of start a conversation and see where we are with how we can, again, listen, right? That's where we are. We're just listening at this point. I do also want to recognize that it is National School Counseling Week, and I know that all of the schools have been recognizing their school counselors, and I just want to say thank you so much for the work that you do. We appreciate it, and you are seen and heard. Thank you.
Thank you. And I do want to acknowledge the unfortunate incident that did occur, but I also want to thank everyone for showing up, because the reality is, if this happened and nobody showed up, that means that nobody cared. Now, apathy is worse than somebody showing here in a peaceful manner and voicing their concerns. Now, I want to thank my school board member, Castillo. She did a forum on Facebook and says, hey, let me hear what you have to say. And I think that's very important. The superintendent, the day that it happened, I was getting constant text messages. This is what's happening. The sheriff's on the case. I appreciate you doing that, and not just leaving the board out of the door. So we're jumping ahead of it. I know Mr. Arguello, I think, even visited the family. So this board is collectively trying to get in front of the issue. As I mentioned before, that I have a citizens committee that is made up of folks that have no law enforcement background, to include one person that's an activist, and also have folks that are law enforcement background, because I did ask staff, what is our school board policy as it relates to SROs on campus? And I found out that we don't have one. So I think what a perfect time it is to actually create one. So I have this committee reviewing it, and we're gonna get together. I just spoke with an attorney today, and he confirmed that he'd be more than happy to help me out as well. So we're gonna have this volunteer committee to really just get in front of it. The reality is it did happen. We're not gonna hide behind it. The school board realizes that this is an issue. We're adults, we're professionals, as everyone said, we care, and we're gonna show people that we're not just listening, but we're gonna put action behind it and make sure that it doesn't happen again.
Dr. Banks, do you have any comments? Okay. Brings us to a couple of presentations. First presentation is Recognize Art and the Capital Competition winner, Pam Haas and Chris Burns for our fine and performing arts resource teachers.
Thank you, school board members and Dr. Pace, for this opportunity to recognize one of our young artists this evening. The Art in the Capital competition, as authorized by the Florida state statutes, is a statewide visual art competition that requires each school district to annually hold an art competition for all students in grades 6 through 8. The artwork is then adjudicated by usually a committee of high school art teachers, and only one artwork is selected to represent each school district. Representing our district this year is Allie Godwin. She's an 8th grader at Harmony Middle School, and you can see her beautiful work up on the screens. It's an octopus with white charcoal on black paper. Allie's work has been framed and was hand delivered to the Capitol by Representative Fred Hawkins a few weeks ago. And the work will be on display during the regular legislative session, which runs March 2nd to April 30th. So congratulations to Allie and her art teacher right here, Mrs. Leong. We're very proud to have Harmony representing Osceola County.
Great job. Congratulations. Very good.
Beautiful.
As well, Mr. Chalenko.
Are they gonna take a photo?
The next presentation is a proclamation. Is to proclaim February 2021 as Career and Technical Education Month. And Jeff Arnold, our Director of CTE, will do the proclamation or read the proclamation.
It's nice to get to meet the wonderful board here. Thank you, Chairman Thacker. Thank you, Dr. Pace, and my great colleagues and friends of the school district. This is Career and Technical Education Month. It's a public awareness campaign that takes place each February to celebrate the value of career and technical education and the achievements and accomplishments of our programs across the county. To honor CTE programs, the National Association of Career and Technical Education issued a proclamation observing February 2021 as Career and Technical Education Month. And we're also proud to announce this year we have started some rapid credentialing programs called our Rapid Careers program. We have 38 students that are actually finishing up that program as we speak. True adults that'll be on the pathway as recovery from this, and apprenticeship programs are coming soon. But I want to have one of our wonderful students that passed here to actually read the proclamation. Kiarla Rosado is in the medical billing, the medical coding and billing program over at OTEC Path. Apologize. Slip of the tongue. But she's also the Skills USA Florida State Secretary, which is the student organization for the program. So it was we asked her to come out, and she is here. It's your show now.
Thank you. So the Honorary Proclamation. Whereas the month of February 2021 has been designated Career and Technical Education Month by the Association for Career and Technical Education, and whereas Career and Technical Education offers students the opportunity to gain the academic, technical, and employability skills necessary for career readiness, And whereas students in career and technical educational programs participate in authentic, meaningful experiences that improve the quality of their education and increase their engagement and achievement. And whereas career and technical education provides students with career exploration opportunities earlier in their educational experience, which enables them to make informed and beneficial decisions, about their academic coursework and pursue established programs of study and career pathways. And whereas leaders from business and industry nationwide report increasing challenges related to addressing the skills gap and connecting qualified professionals with available careers in critical and growing CTE-related fields, including healthcare, energy, advanced manufacturing, cybersecurity, and information technology. And whereas career and technical education prepares students for these and other following careers by offering integrated programs of study that link secondary and post-secondary education and lead to the attainment of industry-recognized credentials. And whereas career and technical education programs ensure that employers have access to a qualified and thriving workforce, ensures America is a strong and competitive economy. And now, therefore, the School District of Osceola County proclaims February 2021 as Career and Technical Education Month.
I have a motion by Ms. Castillo. Second by Mr. Arguello already. Board, any discussion? I would just like to say you did a great job reading that. I know that's, it could have been 3 or 4 more pages long, but with some more whereases, but,
Yeah, there's a lot of whereas.
yeah, very nice job. Thank you. Any other comments? Hearing none. All those in favor of the proclamation signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you very much again. Let's see. Appointments and transfers, we have none. Superintendent update, Dr. Pace.
Yes, sir. Just very quickly, I wanted to provide an update for the board. We are now down to 28.4% digital and 71.7% of our students are back face-to-face. We continue to see that. And the really good news is this week attendance is improving for both groups. 90.6 ADA for our digital learners and 91.2 ADA for our face-to-face learners. I think the work of student services is making a difference. We've recovered now I think 16 students enrolling in our schools that were missing all of first semester. So super proud of that particular work. Also wanted to share that we are starting round 4 of our pool testing. We believe we'll have opportunity to get in one more full cycle of pool testing before the end of the year. Positivity rate continues to be less than half a percent in terms of asymptomatic spread in our schools. And we have now had 5 consecutive days of community positivity rates less than 10%, and really 10 days of it being right at that 10 and below percentile. So we feel good about those, but we also know that it's super important for all of us to maintain the safety protocols that help to keep us all safe, including wearing our masks, practicing social distancing, and washing our hands. We also have our second round of shots for our employees this week. For those 54 employees who were able to go to St. Rose of Lima Church on Martin Luther King Day, there are shots scheduled for Thursday, February the 4th. I have, with, I hope your permission, I thought it was the right thing to do, granted board leave for them to go get their shots and then return to work, rather than requiring anybody to take personal leave. And the second round of shots for those who went to the Department of Health are also on schedule. So we're excited about that. And then finally, we completed our Insight survey, the TNTP culture survey. That's a factor in helping us to understand where people are in terms of those important factors for culture, retention across our schools and district departments. And we averaged an 85% response rate again this year. So super proud in the world of COVID that we're going to be able to have this opportunity to hear from our people with those surveys. The comments are all very, very enlightening always. And then finally, our master board training has been confirmed. We'll go up on the evening of March the 3rd and have all-day training in Gainesville on March the 4th. So I think Tanya's already provided you with that information, but we have all the arrangements pretty much settled, and hope everybody's got that on their calendars. That's all I had, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Pace. Brings us to agenda modifications, and I have one. Excuse me, I would like to pull item 11.01 from the consent agenda to be the first item on the regular agenda. Just nothing wrong with the item. I just want to hear some comments by Mr. Shatir. Any other changes or modifications?
Either one?
Pardon me?
8.01.
8.01, you want to remove it to regular agenda? Okay. Any other changes? If not, entertain a motion.
So moved.
Have a motion to approve the agenda and the consent agenda items, less item 8.01 and 11.01. Is that your?
Yes, sir. Sorry. Yes, sir.
That's okay. Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign, motion carries 5-0. That will bring us to item 8.01. Mr. Melendez?
Hey, Mr. Chair, this item, I remember Mr. Bass, when he was on a campaign trail, was talking about how we need to get our students more engaged with, corporations and doing hands-on technical training. And I remember he made a thing for construction. When I saw it, it's a good program that's similar, but it's Department of Juvenile Justice. So I was wondering, are we able to continue that program for the Home Builders Institute for other programs? I think like Poinciana High School has a construction program. Because I just think this is great, and DJJ needs it. Whatever they can do to get these kids, on a good path to great life. I really appreciate it, but I want to see our other students get that same kind of, treatment as well.
Absolutely, Mr. Melendez. This is the first step because the HBI already has a pact with the Florida Department of Juvenile Justice. So that is outside of our particular system. But as Mr. Arnott shared with you, with the CTE proclamation, apprenticeships are coming. He is working very carefully with local industry features to get those for some of our trades in particular, because we know that's an important part of the work. So it won't be tomorrow, and it won't be this particular program replicated, but we are looking at every opportunity to expand those programs. We already have the ACE mentoring program that Mr. Clinch is highly involved in for some of our construction students, but this would be one step further.
Yeah, I'm just supporting my good colleague, Mr. Bass, on the other side of the aisle. Motion approved.
We're gonna get it done. We'll get it done.
Motion approved.
I have a motion by Mr. Melendez with a second by Mr. Arguello to approve item 8.01. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign, motion carries 5-0. Brings us to 11.01, which I pulled from the consent agenda, and I just wanted Mr. Shatir to give us kind of a little overview of how things went here.
Good evening, Board. I am the chief negotiator of the Teamsters contract and have a team of people from various departments in the district. We're here tonight, hopefully to ask for your approval for the contract between the school board and the Teamsters Local 385 for the next 3 years. I've convinced the Teamsters to go with a 3-year contract, still allowing them the opportunity to bring items forward as needed upon mutual agreement. I do want to point out that they ratified yesterday around 3:30 with 333 votes of yes and 17 rejecting. Quite an overwhelming majority. But I do also have Article 19 and 20 are both mostly the changes there. I have gone through the entire contract and made some grammatical errors that have existed through the years. But if you have any questions on Article 19, basically it talks about the bid process. Dr. Pace and my goal have been to get the drivers to stay on their particular route as long as possible. Some of you who may have ridden the bus as a child realize that you always knew who your bus driver was going to be. I bet Mr. Bass can tell us who his bus drivers were.
Ms. Carter.
With our union contract, we have had in the past an all bid every year. We have convinced them to, at this point, go to an all bid every 2 years and then only bid anything that comes up in 45 days as an open route. Gets us a little closer to where we want to be. The other item is articles and wages, and you'll find that that discusses the 3% supplement and the 2 days for 12-month employees if they're fall into this contract. And the last thing that we've added is a safe driver plan. By statute, we are required to have a safe driver plan. We have not had one in the past. This plan for white fleet and yellow fleet assigns a committee to take a look at as people get infractions. They would earn some points and be disciplined in that process, or some corrective training if necessary. If there's any other questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I appreciate the fact that you guys are negotiating 3-year contracts, because that's always been my issue with the unions. When you get into these great negotiations and you're still happy, and next year you gotta start all over again as if nothing ever happened. So I wanted to congratulate staff for doing that. And so I don't know if that's like a board policy for all the unions that we have. That instead of doing, 1-year agreements and then having short-term memory to kind of starting from scratch every time, you're just creating this adversarial environment that maybe we look at the possibility of having 3-year negotiations moving forward for the others. I mean, I know there's pros and cons on each side, so that's just something that I would just love to, maybe when they have a discussion.
Mr. Webb?
I was just curious, Mr. Cetera, first of all, is there a union representative here?
He could not come this evening. He has some personal issues to deal with, and
Out of curiosity, sorry to interrupt you. Those 17 people that said no, do you have any insight as to why?
no, sir, the vote was just yesterday, and I wouldn't know who those persons were,
Right.
so I wouldn't be able to.
I was just curious. Thank you.
Anything else? I'll entertain a motion.
Oh, motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the item.
I have a motion by Ms. Castillo with a second by Mr. Melendez to approve item 11.01. No discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you very much. Brings us to our regular items, regular agenda items under facilities. We can approve this as a block or individually if anybody has a preference.
I read through all of them. I didn't see anything that really jumped out, but I'll do whatever my other board members want. Julie, John, is anything on there?
I'm okay with the block.
Okay, then I'll move to approve 1305 to approve all the regular.
Oh,
Come on,
It's
glasses.
getting small.
It is getting small. I'm so sorry. 1205. My apologies. Yeah.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Mr. Bass with a second by Mr.
God bless you.
Arguello. And God bless you for to approve item 12.05. Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries 5-0. That brings us to the public comment portion of the meeting. There's probably 35 or 40 here. Many of them are the same topic. I am going to ask everybody that when you come up to speak, please give your name and address to the record, for the record, unless you are a student. You even need to give a first name. Student.
They just can say student.
If you are a student and addressing the board, when you come up, just say student. We don't need any of your name, address, or that information. We do limit public comment to 3 minutes. Since we do have as many as we do have, I am going to be pretty strict on holding you to 3 minutes. If you get there and you can finish your next sentence or so, that's fine. But I need to see that you're kind of wrapping it up. Also, one thing I'm going to ask, I think we're going to have a lot of the same discussions. But as you get up to speak, I'd like you to, if you have something additional to add, please add that up front so we know we get to that, as opposed to just reiterating the exact same thing over and over. That helps us a little bit to hear your different ideas up first. These are in no order, just the way they were handed to me. So the first person on the list is Anne Marie Carter. She may be outside possibly. Ms. Carter, I don't know if you heard me outside. If you have 3 minutes, please give us your name and address for the record. And
Oh, and just real quick, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair.
Leave this up.
Yeah, we have microphones that pick up really well. You don't have to take off your mask to speak.
Well, my name is Anne-Marie Carter. I'm actually from Orange County. I'm a graduate of Apopka High School. I live in Lake County, Eustis, Florida. Head injuries is a very
Can you give
serious
us, your address
issue.
for the record, please?
Excuse me?
Can you give your address for the record too, please?
1312 Jules Court, Julds, Eustis, Florida, 32726. I myself suffer a head injury as I was slammed back in 1978 at Osceola Elementary School. Inside my classroom, leaving out to go out to recess, that a student was blocking me from not going. I was actually picked up and pretty much slammed, even though there's a dispute about me being slammed or whether it was an accident. I am part of the Florida sports legacy. I'm the first one out of my generation to ever have offers to turn professional in sports as well as modeling. I was 15 years old when I had my first offer to turn professional as far as women's professional basketball, which I did help establish with the United States Army Rec Services. I'm also a Cold War fighter. I had to fight a battle for 16 years. We ended it in 1991 over in the state of Germany, in the country of Germany. I came back here to expose the situation that's been going on in the public school system across the state of Florida, as well as having it in relations to sports, especially dealing with females. We are oftentimes roughed up, we're harassed a lot, and nothing is ever done about it. Like I said, I'm a graduate of Apopka High School, and from 1986, and even still today, some of the sports players I have to stay away from because the harassment is still there. This is an issue that needs to be looked in very seriously. She's going to have lifelong, a lifetime of headaches. She's going to experience times of memory loss that's going to go throughout the duration of her life. Depression is going to be there. She's probably going to have time, like with me, I've had offers. I've been executive board meetings and stuff like that because I'm a professional. But I have difficulty time sitting up. I slouch a lot. At times, I have to remind myself to eat because I will have weight loss if I don't. I go through a lot of name calling as far as being crackhead or being called just a friendly ghost type person. People have a hard time acknowledging me as to who I am because of it. And like I said, it's going to affect her for the rest of her life. And it's a serious situation that needs to be looked into. You know, not just because of what the officer did, but because of her medical health and the effect that it's going to have. Not saying that she won't be able to live a successful life, but still, she's going to have a lifelong effect. Thank you.
Next, Jorge Figueroa.
My name is Jorge Figueroa, 2312 Merrimack Drive, Kissimmee, Florida, 34743. I'm the president for the Puerto Rican Chamber of Commerce of Central Florida. I'm here to introduce myself to the board and let them know that the Puerto Rican Chamber of Commerce is here to found alliances with the board, with the school district, and help in any way that we can. Last month, we held our first annual scholarship fundraiser golf tournament here at the Kissimmee Bay Country Club, and we raised $12,000 for scholarships that we want to give out to students in the counties that we serve, which are Orange, Osceola, and Seminole. So I'm asking for your help to provide you the requirements for these scholarships, and also if there's any representatives from the Education Foundation, if there's a opportunity for us to collaborate to offer more scholarship money, that would be greatly appreciated. But at this moment, we'll be providing 2 scholarships for 2 students going into a 4-year college for $1,000 each, and 2 scholarships for $2,000 for 2 students going into a 2-year college or technical school of $2,000 each. We're going to be distributing these requirements throughout the different school districts. This is the first one that we visit, so I hope that you guys can help us spread that word about those scholarships. It's for Latino students, and we'll have all the requirements to you as soon as you point me in the right direction. Aside from that, I wanted to touch a little bit on the previous meeting with the procurement department, where Ms. Cheryl Hood from purchasing was asked some questions by Mr. Julius Melendez about any MBE enterprises and any numbers from the purchasing department. Well, Statute 287.09451 from the state of Florida is for the Office of Supplier Diversity. And it states that the purpose of and intent of this section is to increase participation by minority businesses, enterprises accomplished by encouraging the use of minority business enterprises and the entry of new and diversified minority business enterprises into the marketplace. It goes on to list a section where it goes, section 4N1A, where it specifies the spending goal percentages for all minority groups and industry categories. So there are some Florida statutes in place for minority business enterprise. As a chamber, I represent hundreds of businesses that would like to be part of this process. So I would suggest that if the purchasing department is not aware of this status for the Office of Diversity Supplier Program, that we get them in contact and we make sure that they're complying with the Florida status for diversity suppliers.
Dr. Pace, on this, it says phone number stuff. Can we get the foundation to?
Yes, I had asked Tanya to get me the information, and we'll make that connection tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
And if the attorney can look up those statutes to make sure that our policy that we're revising is in alignment with that as well.
Next up, we have Elton Lassiter. I believe just in the essence of time, following this person will be, I believe it's Wanda Wallace. Is that it? Mr. Lassiter? You have 3 minutes. Please give us your name and address for the record before you get started.
Elton Lassiter, and my address is 1840 Reinhardt Road, Sanford, Florida. In the light of recent events, I wanted to say that anyone who saw the video of the young lady being slammed to the ground should be appalled. And we're seeing these type of things occur to our youth across the country more often, mostly against our Black and brown youth. And I want to say that it's time for a change. This stuff has got to stop. I mean, it was unnecessary for that officer to slam that young lady to the ground. And we all saw the video. Some things don't need an investigation. Some things don't need due process. Action should have been taken against that officer immediately. There's nothing that young lady could have said or done that would have warranted that type of action on behalf of an adult. Not only an adult, but he's supposed to be an officer at that school. And I think it's time that we get more counseling done at these schools and get more officers out of there, because obviously they don't know how to behave. And I wanted to also say that our children deserve better. They deserve better. They deserve an opportunity to learn in a safe environment. It's tough enough to be a student, a Black and brown student in this country. It's tough enough to be a student in Florida. And I say it's got to stop. We got to get more counselors in there and get these cops out of there. Thank you.
Mr. Glassman. And I'm not 100% sure, but I think it was Wanda Wallace. Rhonda Wallace. Ms. Wallace, you have 3 minutes. Please give us your name and address for the record.
My name is Rhonda LaRae Wallace, and I'm at 6136 Raleigh Street, apartment 1207, Orlando, Florida, 32835. And I'm here today, just like everybody else is, to implore you guys to do whatever you feel is necessary, because what I feel is necessary is less brute strength and more love, right? We can't come at everything head on, especially when it deals with our children. All of us in here have kids, you know, and it's tough being a parent. And we just need to use more conversation, more communication when dealing with young people. We know that violence isn't going to solve anything. Because once the problem leaves, the only thing remains is that they remember what happened to them. They don't know what they did. They don't know what's going on. All they know is they're hurt and that they've been treated unfairly. But us as adults, we have a responsibility, not just to ourselves, but to our young people as well, to do something, you know, and I employ this council for that to be done. This is a historic month, not just for me, but everybody in this room, right? This is Black History Month. We should be showing appreciation to not just our ancestors, and this is our future. Our children are exactly who is going to remember and carry on our legacy. And is this how we want to be remembered? You know, as someone who sat around and we didn't do what the law provided us to do, what's in our power. And all I'm asking you all to do right now is to hear, not just hear what I have to say, but everybody else that behind me and in front of me, and to do exactly what needs to be done. Because we have elected you guys to be our representatives, and so that I trust you with my children as well too. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Watson. Next is, please forgive me if I messed this up bad, Gloria Mazarigos. Following her will be Calvin Fonjur.
Hello, my name is Gloria Mazariegos. I'm at 2384 Great Harbor Drive, Kissimmee, Florida, 34746. I graduated Liberty High School 4 years ago, and I can't say that I saw SROs being forceful in my time there, but I can say that that's not the only way that we police students. In my time there, if you were late to school, like after the bell rang and like you were walking to your class, detention, and you had to wait in line, like in a little place to get a detention slip to then like get in trouble for something. If our polos weren't the shade of green that they had to be, detention. It was like police your students, and if you don't have a badge, like your teachers can basically send you for detention for whatever you want. So it's like in that way, we police ourselves, and we like don't trust that students have a voice. We're like, no, you're bad, go away, right? And so it's like, I don't know, that is a problem to me, first of all. And then like, second of all, seeing that video just like made me sick, especially after seeing another video of like the police officer handling a situation with pepper spray, and where like a lot of kids were being like burned by that. Like, I don't think that we have a strong argument for having more police or more training in schools when like the whole system and the whole way that we treat students is bad, you know? So like, I don't know how Liberty is handling the situation with lateness and tardiness and the color of your polo now, but I'm just saying like, it's not right, and I'm still pretty young, you know? And then you grow up and you see the adults that we elected conform to like security and like law enforcement when like the video is just plain wrong. Like, that should have never happened. The fight that the student was gonna have did not happen, but the tackling and the hurtness and the trauma, that did. So I expect all of you adults to fire him, to fire the policeman in the school that did not do anything about it, and to really look into all of that. Thank you. And I voted for District 3, and I did not vote for you, John Arguello. You? Okay.
Calvin, on yours? I'm not sure I'm saying. Calvin? We'll move on, maybe.
Who's on deck?
Jenny Sanchez. Following that will be Valeria Perez. Ms. Sanchez, you have 3 minutes. Please give us your name and address for the record, and the floor is yours.
I'm a student, but I'm 18. So do I give my address and stuff or no?
No, I'm sorry, just say student.
Okay, student. I've been a student in Osceola County my entire life. And to see something like this in our community makes me sick. It makes me even more sick to know that the officer responsible has only been suspended. Bare minimum, he should be fired. You should not be able to body slam a child and be able to go back to work. If a student body slammed another student, they would be expelled. But when an adult does it, it's okay. We're supposed to accept it in our schools. Someone who's supposed to protect us. The adult gets a slap on the wrist, but the child is punished. The kid that got body slammed, that girl, didn't even do anything yet. Even if she had done something, there's no reason to use that type of force on a child. And to see the response from the board is even worse. I'm disappointed. This has been swept under the rug, and we deserve to feel safe in our schools. The county has a responsibility to not only not fail us again, but tell us, the public and the students that go to the schools, how they're not going to fail us again. We need concrete policy, and we need accountability. A board member approached me and other protesters about a policy committee, and we expect that this policy will be written with urgency and transparency. We can't have empty promises again. This cannot happen in Osceola County again. Thank you.
Next is Valeria Perez. Nope. Okay. Okay, I'm sorry. And you don't have to give your name. You have 3 minutes. The floor is yours.
My name is Valeria Perez, and as stated at the beginning of this meeting, the mission statement of the Osceola School District is to inspire all learners to reach their highest potential as responsible, productive citizens. However, this idea is unrealistic when students are in a learning environment that offers little to no mental health resources and their safety is at risk with the presence of school resource officers. Tonight, I hope you all listen to the speakers with honest compassion and urgency to create change and determine what has evidently been failing students and what solutions can be enacted to address those failures to help improve this district and every learning environment in it. Since the Columbine shooting and Sandy Hook shooting, the implementation of school resource officers has proven to be an ineffective solution at keeping students safe. There have been one too many cases of officers abusing their powers in schools and using excessive force on students, and with that, there has been a lack of urgency of accountability to fix these issues from school board officials. School resource officers have had a history of this abuse of power and enforcing discriminatory practices on campus. They are an evident danger to students of color and students with visible disabilities. The American Civil Liberties Union found in 2019 that students of color and students with disabilities are 3 times more likely to be arrested by a school resource officer on campus than their counterparts. Yet there has been a rise in the number of officers employed in schools in the past 2 decades. This can be attributed in part to the frequency of gun violence in American schools. And following a series of high-profile shootings in schools, implementation and funding of SRO programs has skyrocketed. But however, studies have found no direct link between these officers and increased safeguards against gun violence. In fact, there have been many instances where officers have run in the opposite direction during shootings or haven't even tried to enter the building. So if you agree that SROs are unnecessary except in the case of active shooters, then you're saying you want to risk students of colors and students with disability. Yes, school shootings are a huge issue in the U.S. and that needs to be addressed, but not with over-policing. A study done again by the ACLU reports that 1.7 million students are in schools with police officers but no counselors. 3 million students are in schools with police officers but no nurses. And 6 million students are in schools with police officers but no social workers. In these schools, when an issue arises ranging from a disagreement with a friend to a physical altercation, students are referred to officers rather than counselors, and these referrals have disproportionately impacted students of color. The data published in a report by the U.S. Department of Education Office of Civil Rights found that Black students are more than twice as likely to receive discipline through law enforcement despite composing a significantly smaller proportion of students. SROs in schools only perpetuate the school-to-prison pipeline, and their presence in our schools create physical, psychological trauma, especially for students from over-policed communities. Removing SROs from schools is a necessary step towards changing discriminatory policies and more equitable student schooling. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Stephanie Gaillard. Please give us your name and address for the record.
My name is Stephanie Goulart. I'm from 1200 Holden Avenue, Orange County, and I'm not a student here, but I'm a resident of Orange County. I'm here to go on record and say that I've seen the negative effects of SROs in public schools, and I've seen the biases in these officers when I was in high school personally. And I've watched kids be funneled toward the prison pipeline system because school officers don't understand certain kids, and so these biases enact them to do what they've done last week to students of color. I read online that SROs in this district specifically are not required to do juvenile training, and when we say we need counselors, this is why specifically. In a world where every 2 days there's a viral video of an officer brutalizing or killing Black folks or people of color, what message are we actually sending these kids if in school they don't feel safe as well? And also, we are sending them without pay, but we're not firing them immediately when these actions take place. What message are we sending these kids? We are setting Black kids up to grow up in fear that they're not safe in spaces where they're supposed to be safe, including schools. Remove these SROs. Parents should send their kids to school trusting that these educators and staff members are keeping their kids safe out of harm's way. So where were the staff members when this happened? Why didn't anybody step in? And why does this keep happening on school grounds? That's what we are asking staff members to commit to racial biasing classes and also to getting rid of SRO in school districts. These officers would have never met this young lady with such aggression if she looked like me, and I can say that with my whole heart. And that's because there are certain biases with officers, and we need to see that before we put them in schools or get rid of them entirely. It's a shame, and it is racially motivated even if we don't see it in this room, and it's on us to say that enough is enough. That's all I have to say.
Next, I have a student, Emily Ann. Okay. Corrine Daly? No, sorry.
My name is Corinne Daly. I am at 170 North Lakewood Circle, Maitland, Florida. I'm here today on behalf of the Heroes for Average Workers. Founder Tamika Lyles and its organizational board, we are mortified at the use of force exhibited by school resource officer Ethan I don't know how to pronounce his last name, on Taylor Bracy at Liberty High School by allowing officers to work within our schools without clear and concise guidelines outlining their responsibilities and identifying how those duties should be carried out. It puts all students at risk of physical harm, just as Taylor Bracy. You guys heard that knock on the ground. That could have been any of your children. If that was someone of my skin color, it would be completely different. And you know that. We know that. That's why we're all here. I have a lot to say in this statement, but I just have to say, as a white woman, this should stop now. Whether you need to get the officers out of the school, whether you need to do more training, but you as a school board should have apologized, immediately condoned the behavior, period. That child could have died by hitting her head on that concrete. I am a survivor of domestic violence. These accidents can't happen with abusers next to our children. What are we saying to the world? What are we saying to the country, to this Central Florida area? We're the happiest place on earth? No, this is terrible. I don't know how you waited until the end of the meeting to address it. I don't know why no one has come up with a solution that actually, your sheriff, he pretty much threatened people. It sounded like he was very hostile. I have 58 seconds left. And like I said, I had a statement, but my emotions got the best of me. Why? Because a black girl was body slammed to the concrete to have damage that is beyond any of your understandings, because none of you have had that type of assault, and you don't know the emotional trauma, you don't know the psychological effects, and not to mention the neurological effects, the actual her brain, okay? Y'all need to get it together. Whoever you guys are and whatever this is, you need to address the issues. That was terrible. I yield back my time, but that was, come on, if it was a white girl, would you be here listening to us?
Next is Eliana Slip. Eliana, I believe is the first one. Slide. Good evening, welcome. Please give us your name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is Elena Slight. I'm actually an elected official to the Orange County Soil and Water Board, but I come here as a concerned citizen. Right? I watched the video the other day, and I had my own, reaction of fear. I think a lot of us are saying, oh, what if it was your kid? What if it was kid? But I think we have to remember as people, we don't want to see that happening to us, right? It's not okay that this man took this small girl and hit her on her head. That is scary, right? We're all living in a world where people can be really scary. And I know that there's a lot of arguments on both sides that say, there are people that are being violent, right? And we all want to be safe. But how do we ensure that we're going to move forward from this, right? People want to have hope. We want to have hope that we can move forward. And the only way to do that is to hold the people that have done wrong accountable, right? I used to say I want good for everyone, but the truth is, I want what everyone deserves, right? When you mess up, you have to know that you messed up to decide that maybe you don't want to do that in the future. If when I mess up, I get paid leave from my job, how does that tell me that maybe I should do better in the future, right? We're all living in a tough world, and I understand that. But it's time for hope, right? We all want that hope that what happened in the past isn't always going to happen in the future. I've had my own run-ins with the police. I have my own feelings of how scary and intimidating that is. But do I want to live in a world where I can feel safe? Where I can feel safe around any man? That is important, right? And the only reason I live in a world where I can go to school and I have some protections is because the people before me fought really hard to get us here. And so what I'm asking you guys to do is take the time, think hard about what can you do? What changes can you make? I know we're asking for a lot. Maybe you can't give that right this moment. There's a lot of powers that be and things that you have to work with. But what can you do?
What can you do to ensure the safety of our children, of each other? We have to hold our community members accountable when they do things that are wrong. And what that officer did was dangerous. It was reckless. And it was totally outside the what he is supposed to do as an officer. He's supposed to use the minimum force, right? It's possible that he was scared in that moment, but we have got to show him that you can't do that. You can't do that, get paid leave, go home, and everything's okay. Because if that happens, then what about the next little girl, right, who has irreversible head trauma? It's important that we take this moment to make the change so that we can have hope in the future. And I hope each of you will take your role here seriously because it matters. Every decision that you make, it's going to matter. So think about it. Think with your heart. Thank you.
I have a question. The question on mentioning the paid leave, I just want to make it clear for the record, that is the leave for the sheriff, right? Even though we have a contract with the SRO, the paid leave component of it, that's the sheriff's decision, not the school board's decision.
The officer and employee is an employee of the Osceola County Sheriff's Department. He's not a school district employee.
And if I could add to that, this board is, I can say, very, very concerned because each of you have talked to me. Fortunately, when that officer is acting as a law enforcement officer, he is under total jurisdiction and control of the sheriff, not this district. And you have no authority to give him any direction when he's acting in a law enforcement mode.
Next, Matthew Caino.
Thank you for asking.
Welcome. Please give us your name and address for the record and 3 minutes.
Yes. My name is Matthew Quainu.
Sorry, I apologize.
That's okay. Address is 3003 Dust Commander Drive. I'm the senior pastor of the Solid Rock Community Church here in Kissimmee. Tonight, I'm here as a concerned father on behalf of my children, my nieces, and my nephew. My mind goes to the 18th day of September, the year 1963. Martin Luther King says, "It comes a time when silence is violence. Silence is betrayal." When Taylor Bracey was violently thrown down, all of us were violently thrown down. Her head bashed into the concrete unto unconsciousness, and the officer did not even render aid immediately, but sought to apprehend an immobilized body. Now, we are not against the police. We are against police brutality. And all those who support the police should also be against that which is not policing at all. What are we calling for? This should not just be a conversation without confrontation. Tonight, we need to call for the immediate removal of police from our schools. Let's take a page out of Seminole County. It allows for professional security to provide protection for students. That way, they can be held accountable by this body here today. Because I've heard far too often that this officer was acting under the jurisdiction of policing. Well, not everything that is policy is morality. Not everything that is legal is just or right or moral. And tonight I'm here to declare that that was immoral, it was unjust, it was unethical. And I believe it's wrong that we can have qualified immunity from consequences, but we don't enforce qualified immunity from bias and racism. It's gotten to a point where it's not just quantitative evidence. I can talk about the Harvard University study in 2016, or the study from the University of California, or a study from the Center for Policing Equity. It is clear that Black children and Hispanic children are over-policed, over-incarcerated, undereducated, and underserved. And we should not tolerate, because whatever we tolerate will dominate. And so I've come here to decry that kind of behavior and ask this body right now, don't just talk the talk tonight, walk the walk. Let's address this issue, let's change this around, and let's do better for our dear sister, Taylor Bracey. You should think about your own daughter, think about your own children. God bless you.
Amen. Amen. Student Christine. You don't need to give us your name, but you have 3 minutes to work.
Okay. I'm a student at Osceola County School for the Arts, and I'm here on behalf of Taylor Bracey, the girl who got hurt. But I don't really want to talk much on how disgusting it was. I want to talk more on you guys and how disappointing you guys are, because when things like this happen, I've heard from many of my teachers that you guys, the school board, you reach out and you say, don't talk about it. Don't talk about these things. As if they're not important, as if we don't deserve to know what's going on. And that's disgusting of you guys, and you guys are disappointing. And quite frankly, a joke, because these things deserve to be talked about or they're gonna continue to happen. And that's why these things have happened so frequently. And that's why they continue to happen, because they're not talked about. So I'm just asking as the school board for you guys to do better, because you're not doing well. And you need to reach out and you need to make it known that you guys stand against this, because if you don't say anything at all, we're expecting that it's okay. You guys think it's okay. We need to know that you guys are on the side of us, because the Black students that you guys have, the Hispanic students that you guys have, we're all hurting. Your students are hurting and they're not getting any help. You wonder why they have depression and anxiety. It's because they're hurting and you guys don't do anything to help us. You guys need to use your voice. You guys need to talk to us. You need to tell us what's going on, and you need to tell us that you guys are doing everything in your power to make sure this doesn't happen again. Mr. Melendez talked to me and my friends and told us that after he saw this incident, he immediately knew that something needed to be done. Where is it? Because we didn't see it. You need to show it too. Stop talking and show us something. Thank you.
Next, another student, Rebecca. Rebecca? You don't need to give us your name. You can just...
I'm a high school student. I want to start off by saying that the actions of Officer Ethan Forner have caused many of us students to be heavily distraught. There can be no justification to the way the situation at Liberty High School was handled. Deputy Ethan Forner abused his power much like many officers do in law enforcement. I believe as students we should have a say in what happens in our own schools, and I also believe school resource officers should not have a place in our schools. As a young Black woman, I feel as if I need to put on a constant front to hide who I really am, for I do not know which stereotype an SRO might perceive me to be that day. School resource officers do the opposite of what their initial intention was when they are implemented to protect schools. Instead, they further insert students of color into a box that presents them as juveniles. Our main concern should be protect students and not harm them. Our mission statement of Osceola School District cannot be accomplished with the protection we are lacking in our district. How do you expect us to become productive citizens when most of us aren't treated with basic civility? We need to focus on the lack of mental health support in schools rather than criminalization of Black students. A study done by ACLU represents the number of school resource officers in comparison to counselors, psychologists, social workers, and nurses being drastic. I urge you to consider looking into whether or not SROs have made an impact on our campuses. I do not believe they have and would prefer that the item of our budget be used instead to increase the number of counselors, psychologists, social workers, nurses, and more. One resource officer doing a job that should be split among different departments, whether it be mental illness or fighting, is not the way to bring about better protection in our schools. Instead, we should increase funding to areas that benefit the safety of our students and their ability to feel protected within whatever lifestyle they live. You all stated at last school board workshop that your budget reveals priorities. Please prioritize our mental health. Thank you.
Next, Amani Waters. Floor is yours.
Beaten with a baton, pepper sprayed, tased to the point of brain injury, and most recently in our own county, slammed face first into concrete. This is what is happening to the next young minds of our generation. This is a problem. It's safe to assume that most of the people in this room and those tuning in at home are here to discuss what happened at Liberty High School. Seeing the story unfold in real time, I've seen my fellow peers ask some very hard questions that I have brought for you here today. I'd like to make it clear I do not expect answers in this moment. What is the role of a student resource officer? According to the Osceola Sheriff's Office, it is to protect our most precious resource, our children. Students, parents, and teachers combined have been very displeased and disappointed with the lack of communication regarding this incident. We waited for days to hear the outcome of this young girl and what consequences the officer was facing. It made national headlines because there was rarely any communication on the issue. Just 2 videos that shocked the nation overnight. And barely a word from the school district, Liberty High, or the sheriff's office themselves. There needs to be more transparency regarding these issues, especially when it involves something as impactful as this. And on the topic of communication, many questions have arisen regarding how our SROs are trained and how they are prepared to protect our students, and whether they are even necessary. There were better ways to deal with the situation than happened at Liberty High. Excessive force and violence were not the answer. I searched and searched to find what additional training they receive, but the most I could find is that they are required to complete mental health crisis intervention training, according to the definition of SRO in Florida legislature. Be specific. What is this training? How long do they train? And how are they prepared to deal with the ever-changing mental health of our students? This is a job for the counselors. I am here today with my peers to tell you that we are afraid. We are afraid of a force that is supposed to protect us. Is this your way of protecting us? I implore you to ask yourself these questions. How are they protecting us? How is their training being put to work? How do we train them better and prevent these from happening? There needs to be more than a slap on the wrist and a paid leave. There need to be consequences. This young girl from Liberty has a concussion. We are afraid for our safety at the hands of those who are supposed to keep us safe, but we are not afraid to speak up. We will continue to push and question and ask until we eventually get answers and actions. Listen carefully to the words of those here today and please consider them. Because, as the county says, our SROs are responsible for protecting our most precious resource, our children. All of them. Thank you.
Sandra Bonilla. Good evening. Please give us your name and address for the record, and again, you have 3 minutes.
My name is Lisandra Bonilla, and I live at 4118 Vista Lago Circle in Kissimmee, Florida. So what I want to say is I'm a resident of Kissimmee and also a member of Florida Rising. I'm really disappointed how the school board handled the situation by only suspending the officer with pay instead of firing him immediately. I'm also, with multiple studies from like New America, Georgetown University.
Right? I'm not gonna have false. We already addressed that. That's the sheriff that did the paid leave. That's not the school board that put him on paid leave. So I just don't want that to be a narrative going out there, okay? So you have a right to go out there and speak. But I just want to clear the record. We did not, the school board did not give him paid leave. It's the sheriff's office that he's that employee. That's the sheriff's determination that did that. I just want to clear that up so that way there's not a misconstruing of what's going on. But your voice is very important.
Go ahead and continue.
Thank you for the clarification. So I just want to make sure, I've been reading a lot of studies from New America, Georgetown University, Justice Police Institute, that the officers are using excessive force on Black and brown students. And there's been multiple studies every year on this. And also, I wanted to talk about the school resource officers tend to escalate some of the issues instead of de-escalate them. And this is not fair because some of these kids now are gonna have criminal records when in other schools, they just get like a suspension. So we kind of have to take a look at that and make sure we don't take these kids straight from school to prison. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Lawana Gelser. Please give us your name and address for the record, and you have to.
Lawana Gelser, I reside in Orlando, 825 West Washington, but you do not have to get my address. That's a clarification. Interpretation. This is Black History Month. Interpretation. What did the Parkland shooting ask us to do? Have school resource officers. It never said they must be police. When you invite police into a school, you invite qualified immunity, the Bill of Rights, things to protect their bad behavior. That's what we're dealing with. This is Black History Month. 1619, you brought people that look like me from Africa. And the systemic racism and all the things that you've done is apparent today. That's the problem. The officer did not see a Black female child. He criminalized, no fight, her speaking out because she was being bullied. He did not see a child. We've allowed you to criminalize being a child. If disorderly conduct, you've heard the stats. You've heard it all. But the simple fact is, are you listening? And do we need to have more people die? More people be arrested? In Orange County, 2 6-year-olds arrested for having a temper tantrum. A young lady hair being pulled. You don't need to have these type of people in our schools. You heard them. You were elected to protect those children.
Yes, you are.
So why are you allowing bad behavior and things to protect their bad behavior? That qualified immunity, nothing's going to happen to him. Absolutely nothing. The community is sick of it. We're sick of what you're doing to our children. Our children is not a commodity. Because when you criminalize being a child and simple behavior, you're making money. School to prison pipeline is real. You base how you gonna be a presence on 3rd grade Black children. So that's what we're talking about. Are you taking what slavery was and bringing it today? We might be free to go on certain buses and stuff, but are our children and us really free? Systemic racism is alive and well today. Wake up, interpretation, read the law. Get them out of the schools. They don't belong there. Get the proper individuals in the schools to protect our schools, because all they know how to do is arrest. Arrest, arrest, not de-escalate. They're not experts in working with our children. Get them out of the schools now before you have another incident. And you forgot 3 years ago, you had a 13-year-old get choked out by an officer. And you guys might not know about it, but I do. So your hands are not clean. Your hands are not clean. Stop it. Thank you.
Anthony Tripp. Anthony, name and address for the record, please. Welcome. And you have the 3 minutes.
I hope y'all doing all right. My name is Anthony. I'm the founder of the Reach Party. I'd like to talk here today about Black women being brutalized in our country. I want to remind everybody that it was just this summer when we had a young woman named Breonna Taylor who died at the hands of police. We see time and time again Black men being shot down and killed in the street but we don't talk about our black women. I'm here to protect black women and black children and black female students. We come here today and we realize that there were several allegations. I wonder, in your last contract with the sheriff's office, why did you not implicate where a sheriff can talk online to a student with no supervision? I want to also talk about how in the last contract, with these similar incidents are approached, why don't you have authority to at least recommend his firing? I want to talk about protecting black women. I don't think people are listening when we talk about protecting black women, because we see each and every time that it is swept off the rug, it is justified. I read 100 comments a day on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter of people justifying this officer's behavior, violent behavior. And my mans, I'm not going to mention a name, but there's been several people who say that people support officers being in schools. From what I heard today from the community, that's saying that I hear the opposite. We agree that police officers are meant to be in school to protect the school from school shootings. We see in statistics and studies that has nothing to do with keeping the school safe. We see youth arrests being raised, amount of color students being sent to prison and jail for minor incidents in other schools, and private schools and white schools are allowed to be suspended or lightly reprimanded by their own school. I want us to remember what Parkland allowed us here. It has brought us here. We have realized that policing in this country is used as a weapon to brutalize and harass and abuse people of color, and especially black people. People that look like me, Miss Luana, and many others in that room. We come here today and we ask you to figure out a solution to remove SRRs from school. We do not need them anymore. It's apparent that we have ways to get around them, and I see shocked looks. We have faculty, the child who was separated from another child was separated by a faculty member. That police officer had no right to put his hands on a young child and body slam her to the ground. Body slams that I have not even seen in UCF. This is unacceptable. And I see people unconcerned with this, but I want y'all to remember that this is America. This will continue to happen. You will not have peace in your country until you deal with your brutality issues. Thank you for your time.
Next up, Tosh. Not even gonna try the last one. Tosh, welcome. Please give us your name and address for the record in 3 minutes, sir.
Thank you. My name is Tosh Beckerell. Address is 3383 Hillmont Circle, Orlando, Florida. And yeah, I'm just here to express my discontent, my frustration with what I saw last week. I work with a youth organization that works with youth from all the way to the Florida Keys to the Panhandle, and it just makes me very upset to know that there's young people in schools that are just going to school every day, and in this state, other states that continuously suffer from police violence. It's not acceptable. It really isn't. And I think we really need to make a concerted effort to move away from that trend, because in Florida, we're one of the leaders. We are one of the leading states that send children to prison, to the carceral system, and the #1 place where they get sent there is through schools. A lot of people have stated earlier, through SROs, there actually isn't that much statistical proof that they make schools safer, but it is, very easy to discern that the more SROs there are in schools, the more students end up getting processed into the criminal system. And even myself, I was in high school around like 10 years ago, middle school like 15 years ago, and I don't think we even had this many cops when I was around. And speaking to people that went to school like 20, 30 years ago, I don't think there was that many cops then either, right? But we know like fights have happened in schools since probably the first school was built. It's something that you all have probably seen, I've seen, but it's actually very recent that we have heavily armed law enforcement in schools to deal with this, and it's kind of like bringing a gun to a knife fight, or a fist fight, really. So I really urge you all to examine what the role of these policies are, and how do we keep our students, our young people, away from getting institutionalized? How do we help them set up a good future for themselves? And I think it's really incumbent on you all to listen to your constituents. These are all community members, right? Like, people came from miles away to make sure that they can voice their concerns, because it's something that's very serious. And it's not going to be something where it's a one-off, we have this incident and then everyone forgets about it. I think there's a trend. Last year, similar things happened in Orlando. Things are happening in Lake County, and it's really a trend that people are starting to recognize that it's not okay. So you all were elected by the public to serve the public, right? And I really urge you to listen to us now and make decisions based on facts, based on the welfare of the students in this district. So I yield my time.
Next, I have Anthony Nieves. Please give us your name and address for the record, sir, and 3 minutes and welcome.
My name is Anthony Nieves. I'm a 14-year resident of Osceola County. Permission to withhold my address on the basis of my prior employers in the state of Florida and in the state of New York, dealing with the homeless and the at-youth risk population. Do I have that permission to withhold my address, my home address?
Where that be?
I've worked for DJJ and I've worked for various agencies that...
Certified law enforcement officer?
Non-sworn. I was a fraud investigator for the Department of Financial Services. I also worked with the Osceola County Corrections Department and the Osceola County Department of Juvenile Justice, well, the Florida Department of Juvenile Justice.
I'm okay.
You're okay with that? All right, sounds good. Again, my name is Anthony Nieves, and I'm a proud 14-year resident of Osceola County District 2, representing BVL to the fullest. It's where I've lived my entire time in Osceola County. I am present today in solidarity with those in my community that support the action of eliminating paramilitary organizations from policing our schools. The definition of police and, sheriff's departments, it's right there. And many of you that have been in law enforcement or quasi-law enforcement agencies know that any police department is a paramilitary organization, which has no right in our school system in America. As the father of a young child with nonverbal autism, the thought of my son interacting with the police during a moment of heightened mental health distress is utterly terrifying to me. This has nothing to do with black or white. This has to do with the babies that are in our school system. Now, I moved from the poorest congressional district in America to Osceola County in pursuit of the promise that many developers put forth before us. Affordable housing, great schools, safe schools. And we see that now the Band-Aid solution is to put a school resource officer. Is that what it's called? I work with the homeless population of New York City and Florida, and an SRO is single room occupancy. It's not a school resource officer that has a gun, it's paramilitary. Will my 7-year-old's joyous visual excitement, his grunts and moans, be perceived as a threat at any time to police, resulting in a dangerous incident unfolding? It's happened nationwide. What prevents Osceola County from it not happening here? Why do we continue to utilize the easiest route of addressing school safety with the utilization of paramilitary organizations in our schools? When will we address the real issues affecting our children, such as adequate teachers and support staff personnel to include additional school counseling and medical staff. Students get criminally charged for disorderly conduct in incidents where adequate school staffing in a non-paramilitary capacity could have been sufficient. The overwhelming majority of students arrested did not have or do not have weapons, drugs, or alcohol on their person or in their system. Rarely are there any convictions on assault charges, but rather disorderly conduct charges that could have easily been handled without the need for police presence. I leave you with this. In Los Angeles and Chicago, two of the country's 3 largest school districts, teachers' unions are pushing to get the police out. That trend is spreading. You see it here. I was a bit intimidated. Yes, because I've come to numerous school board meetings here in Osceola County, and I see 1, maybe 2 law enforcement officers. Today I saw 1 and 2, and then I saw a half a dozen. I said, boy, we might have a lot of speakers here tonight. But I don't think I've seen any other speakers. In closing, for every biased study that shows the positive effect of having a paramilitary presence in our school, I assure you that there are dozens of unbiased studies that will show you the complete opposite. Create your study now. We await the results. Students want counselors, not cops. Teachers want books, not bullets. All power to the students. Those are our babies. We have to protect them now and forever.
Next, Cecilia Gonzalez. Not here? Oh. Welcome. You have to give us your name and address for the record, please. And
My name is Cecilia Gonzalez. My address is 168 Bowie Lane, apartment 102, Kissimmee, Florida 34743. Good evening, everybody. Good evening, board members. As I say, my name is Cecilia Gonzalez, and I came from Venezuela 4 years ago, running away from violence and lack of civil rights. I am here speaking in front of you in behalf of Taylor because she can't. I'm a Girl Scout leader, and I'm the older sister of a sophomore at Toho Pequelia High School. How am I supposed to tell my little brother and my little young Girl Scouts that school is a safe place to go where their civil rights will be respected? Civil rights are for everybody, and they have been taken off of numerous high schoolers across the nation. And we need to say their names. Unfortunately, Taylor was one of them. It is terrible what has happened to Taylor on the hands of someone whose primary duty is to serve and protect our children. As a young Latinx, I totally understand what being a minority feels like. Our kids are having difficult enough time being safe at their school. All children, no matter the color of their skin, should feel safe at their schools and feel support from their adults, from those grown up who are the carers and the people who are supposed to protect their safety with honor and responsibility. Students, especially students of color, not only have to worry about the police on their neighborhood and on their communities, now they have to worry about the police on their schools. Taylor was new in this school, and she hasn't been back since the incident. Yes, Taylor has a contusion produced by being slapped in the concrete to someone whose job was protecting children like her. I'm here asking all of you board members, I'm not expecting their answer, but I'm asking particular board member Arguello, what are you doing, guys, to prevent this to happen again? Because we cannot correct what already happened, but we can prevent it to happen again. Our children from the county deserve better. I hope that all of you will have the same commitment that all those community members out there have. Sadly, you have failed into our children, and their future is on the hands of people who seem to care more about budget than to the safety of mental and physically of those children. I hope that you look again at your priorities and put our children first. Thank you.
Next, Tristeza Ordak.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tristeza Ordex, and I have many titles. I'm a national organizer, I'm a Marine Corps veteran, I'm a chingona, but the title that I wear most proudly is mom. And so many things went wrong with the deputy's actions, and many more continue to go wrong after the incident. Sheriff Lopez stated in his press conference, there will be zero tolerance for use of force cases, on use of force cases. But this deputy is on administrative paid leave. Paid leave. So if he's being criminally investigated, why is he on paid administrative leave? Have you all asked yourself that? We need to divest from violence and invest in communities. We need to divest from policing and we need to invest in students. You, the sheriff's office, have failed to mention the entire story of what happened with the student. She reached out for help from the school. The school called her family, and then a couple hours later, the mom got another call that notifying her that her daughter, Taylor, had been injured, but she was okay. And let me tell you something, as a mom, if somebody called me and told me my son was injured, but he's okay, and I find out that he's got a head injury, as a Marine, and understanding how traumatic brain injuries work, I'd be pissed. You have all failed. The sheriff failed. The school failed. So we're here during a pandemic because this issue happened and because it wasn't dealt with correctly. I talked to one of the school board members earlier, and he talked about this committee he's putting together to create a policy to prevent stuff like this from happening. Okay. And like a lot of people have mentioned today, there's always talk, but where's the action? And stop packing those committees with consultants and pack them with people that are living those experiences. Power concedes nothing without demands of the people. And remember who put you all there. Because the power lies in them. And if you don't do your job, you will be replaced.
Next, Maxwell Frost.
Hello, Maxwell Frost, 3151 North Orange Blossom Trail. First off, we have some badass students who live in this county who are out here advocating. And I want to say that that's not a private school education, that's public school education right there. Hello everybody, my name is Maxwell Frost. I'm an alumni of the Osceola County School for the Arts, and I'm the National Organizing Director for March for Our Lives, one of the largest youth advocacy organizations in the entire country. We're here with another amazing organization called Florida Student Power Network, who also does some amazing work here in Florida. I'm here due to an extremely unfortunate and tragic situation that happened at Liberty High School. A situation in which one of our precious black students was slammed on the concrete by someone that was there meant to protect her. The officer was meant to mentor her, protect her, help mend the relationship between police and the community. Those are some of the reasons why SROs are in schools. But statistics show that SROs don't prevent mass shootings. You know, in fact, the organization that I work for came out of a mass shooting at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, a situation where the SRO didn't only not stop the shooting, he cowered and ran away. In fact, most statistics show that there aren't really any huge effects when SROs came into school, and this is about 2 decades ago. Over the last 2 decades, SROs began to come into school full time. The only effect we saw go up in the statistics, the largest effect SROs have on our schools is that more students end up leaving school with a criminal record, usually disorderly conduct. disproportionately Black, Indigenous, and students of color. So I'm here to ask, who are they serving? And we as a community and you as a board need to do a better job at protecting our students who are most at risk. For me, I had a great relationship with my SRO at Oxford, Deputy Gibbs. I love Deputy Gibbs. But over the last few years, I've kind of gotten a new way of looking at the world, and people hear me say this all the time, and I demand this of our leaders too. It's seeing the world through the eyes of the most vulnerable. I would give up my relationship with Deputy Gibbs so Taylor wouldn't have had her head slammed on the ground. And look, we can talk about a problem. If you want to talk about a problem, you can invite whoever, but if you want to solve a problem, you need the most impacted people at the table. We need students in these committees. It's good to have a student here every week. We need a student on the board all the time. I was a student on the board for 2 years, wasn't able to vote, but I was here. People who say SROs provide mentorship, we need to provide community mentorship. People say SROs protect our schools. Taylor Bracey wasn't protected. People say SROs build trust between the community and the sheriff's office. Let me tell you something. The best way for them to build community and to get trust with us is for them to stop beating us, for them to stop macing us, for them to stop throwing us in jail like I was thrown into jail for protesting for Black lives. And Osceola McCarty said, if you want to be proud of yourself, you have got to do things that are worth being proud of. So let's get to work and do some things that were worth being proud of and get action done right now. Thank you all so much.
David Caicedo? Is that close? Need your name and address for the record and 3 minutes.
David Caicedo. I'm the co-director of the Florida Student Power Network. I'm just going to start with reading these demands put forward by my organization. We demand that Osceola County School Board immediately prohibit all officers involved in the incident from working near students or youth in the future or ever again. We demand a full investigation of the officers involved in the incident, all school resource and investigation to find out whether all school resource officers have a history of violence, mental health, or any unresolved complaints or domestic violence. We call on state legislators to permanently end the school resource officer program and legislation like the Guardian Act that increase the presence of police and deputize non-police school personnel in policing roles. School boards and the state to reallocate resources into school counselors, social workers, and student support spaces in classrooms for COVID and COVID safety preparation. That the safety and healing of the students involved and for students that witnessed the violence against their peer to be prioritized by providing access to mental health services immediately. That no student be punished either criminally or in the school system in relationship to these incidents. That's both the student that was attacked brutally by this bully and the students that recorded and experienced this. Lastly, that the student's right be protested, to protest be respected. And I'm adding to that, that the teacher's right to protest also be respected. Now, there's something that a member interrupted someone and then another member said that was like, you don't have the jurisdiction over a police officer. Well, money to pay for that SRO comes directly from your budget. If I'm given a defective product, I return it. You actually, if something happens inside of a school, that is your jurisdiction. You actually owe it to those students to hold that responsibly. So for you to say that you don't have jurisdiction of an officer is actually no excuse at all because it happened inside of an Osceola County school. Lastly, the convocation mentioned that you hope that our hopes and desires are put aside more than and for the sake of the education of our children. Do what's right. You know, like we had to file a lawsuit against the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas Commission as an organization just for them to not have meetings in five-star resorts. They like that statute likes to be quoted, but it does not say that there needs to be a police officer in school. If they're there for the safety of the children, actually let them be there for the safety for the children outside of the school. Let them be nowhere near these students, because what is being shown from many testimony from children is that they are afraid of these bullies and that they are not there to serve the interest of any student at all. And
your time is up, sir.
okay, well, thank you, and I will be sending our statement and the demands in writing to all of you. And like my colleagues have said, this is not a one-off thing. We will be here time and time again until change is done, because it is not acceptable in the least.
Next, Jamie Lewis.
You're right when you said the second time.
Denise, I'm sorry. I'm trying.
That's all right, you're fine.
Welcome, and please give us your name and address for the record.
As current probation officer, is it okay if I withhold mine? Thank you. I'm Janice Lewis. I am the founder of Affion Consultants, and it's a cultural diversity and de-escalation training. In lieu of today's events, or the recent events, I'm not gonna harbor on it. We talked about it. It was absolutely horrible, and these kids are amazing. Like these young kids to get up here and say and speak, that's amazing. But to get back on topic, sorry, I have to just say that they were absolutely amazing. But after seeing everything that's happened and speaking with board member Melendez, we have like talked and decided like a policy addition would be amazing. There's wiggle room in the school board policy 1006.12, section 1 and B. And it says that the school resource officer has to listen to you guys. So for when everybody's saying like, what jurisdiction do you have? You guys have it. There's wiggle room to discuss a policy with the people, to get together and to add additional training, to have like a de-escalation matrix, to start exactly where we go from almost kind of like red light to green light to red light, just that simple. But we can also take it a step further, and we can offer this same de-escalation training to youth, because they also need it too. So we can sit up here and say that, oh, these kids are amazing and all this. Some kids aren't taught respect for each other. Some kids aren't taught respect for authority. So that same training that we offer the officers, we can also offer the youth, because respect goes both ways. So I'm here today just asking to be placed on the next agenda. I can do a presentation and just show you what I've been working on. I'm also partnering with Sheriff Lopez to work with de-escalation training with the Sheriff's Office too. So this is just something that's important. This is something that's needed. We definitely need to talk about it. Everybody's here is continue to talk about it. And again, respect goes both ways, and it all starts with a hello. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Ms. Lewis? Yeah. Hi, your phone number is listed on your sheet. Is it okay if I contact you?
Yeah, please call me.
Thank you.
Mr. Allen, I know you're waiting patiently. I've got 3 or 4 where people weren't here. I was going to give them one more shot and see if they are. If not, we will move on to you, Mr. Allen, and close out. A student, Christine. Nobody here? Okay. Well, let me make sure. Emily Ann. Stephanie Gallard, I put her in the wrong stack. She spoke. And did Calvin? Well, I'm sorry, say your name again?
I'm not on the list.
Do you wish to speak?
If I have your permission.
Yeah, come on. After you're done, if you fill out the form though, but come on up and just give your name and address. And you have three, you've been here, you know the drill.
My name is Kaylin Adams. I live at 6522 Center Walk Drive, Winter Park, Florida, Orange County. I'm here to talk about Deputy Fournier. I'm not affiliated with any of the groups outside, although I'd like to voice my support for them. After searching just those two words, Deputy Fournier, on Google, I found several news outlets reporting on his recent use of excessive force, body slamming a compliant and nonviolent student to the ground. I also found ConanDaily.com, which says that prior to this incident, he pepper sprayed a group of kids who were fighting in 2018. In 2020, he attended police brutality seminars, and yet here in 2021, he's gone viral for excessive force. He does not have a history of misconduct. I'd like to ask why that is. If the students in your schools feel he is a threat, even making a petition to have him fired, then why does his record not reflect that? Police officers have a legal monopoly on violence. With more and more of them being exposed every day as being affiliated with white supremacist groups, it's clear that people who want to brutalize black and brown children with no consequences have found the perfect career to do so. You do not need armed men to deal with high school children. I attended high school in Florida. Kids had physical altercations with each other. There was never a need for pepper spray or body slamming. I want to formally urge you not only to remove Deputy Fournier specifically, but end your contracts with the police departments altogether. At best, police in schools bring the sociological label theory to life and cause a school-to-prison pipeline. At worst, you are knowingly offering up your students to potential white supremacists that wear a uniform that says, "I can brutalize you with no repercussions." I have a monopoly on violence. Again, you do not need armed men to deal with children. Get police officers out of Liberty High School, and you're an Osceola County School Board, so get them out of all of your schools. Thank you.
And if you would, fill out that form just for our records, please. I believe that concludes, except for Mr. Allen. I forgot about you. I want to make sure you stayed with us.
Larry Allen, 722 Mabbitt, Kissimmee. And first of all, I just want to say that this has done, well, I'll just say this should catalyze the conversation in Osceola County about culturally responsive teaching and restorative justice practices. And it's time to get to the table. I am so very proud of everybody who came out and spoke their piece, but I'm especially so very proud of our young people, the way they carried themselves and delivered a message. And not only was it emotional, but they had facts. And we have to pay attention to the facts. Recently, I attended a minority and women's leadership training because I'm always trying to get better. I like different points of view, and you pick up nuggets of wisdom. So here are some nuggets. Law enforcement comprised of 85% male and 15% female. But what the nugget is that I was told that the dominant group shapes our thinking. You know that. Moms approach things different from dads. And we think in pictures. And our mental images come from our lived experiences. So with that said, I think there's a place, I'll start back here. Back in 1950 is when the SRO program began in Flint, Michigan, and I need these things. And it says its overall goal was to improve relationships between local police and youth. And I do believe that is a great goal to have. And being in elementary schools and middle schools most of my career, I've seen great SROs. But we all know that not everybody is cut out to be an SRO. Just like I'm not cut out to be a kindergarten teacher. That's going to be a disaster. So we have to be choosy in who we put in those positions. Another nugget I learned was there's this thing called implicit versus explicit bias. And the sneaky thing about implicit biases is you don't know you have them. The moment you realize you have a bias, it becomes explicit. So we're always thinking, our actions are driven by the implicit biases that we have. Another nugget was media bias. the flood in New Orleans, the hurricane, the news reported a young black male looting because he had a 12-pack of Pepsi. They also showed 2 residents fined, they're waiting through order, they fined bread and soda. And we as humans, we look at biases to confirm, we look for things to confirm our biases. Another nugget was they showed how people who were overzealous about a sporting event, they were not characterized the same way as people who were protesting Black Lives Matter. They were, they were called wild animals and criminals and thugs. So we have to be careful about all these things. What I'm saying is, I just hope that we can get people to the table and maybe do some joint training like was offered up so that we can get to a better place from this point forward. Thank you for your time.
That concludes our public comment portion of the meeting. Mr. Rappelbacher, do you have?
Yes, you have item 14.01, last meeting, which is a resolution adopting the rule. Pardon me?
No, I know why you're confused.
Okay.
It is.
I'm not gonna explain it to you right now, but later she'll tell you. All right, my apologies.
And it basically incorporates what you do, codifies it so that everybody understands the rules and procedures. If you're all right with that, your vote will also be approving or starting for the next meeting the pamphlet and new sign-in sheets, which we give whoever is sitting as chair a clear understanding it's a student, not a student.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah.
Is that an actionable item to vote now?
Yes, if you could.
Motion approved.
Second.
Having a motion by Mr. Melendez and a second by Ms. Castillo to approve the resolution regarding code of conduct meetings. Any discussion?
Yeah, this was the document that we've been kind of discussing in terms of behaviors and so on.
It incorporates in it, and it incorporates in the sign-in sheet, it explains to them in the one thing, everybody comport yourself with decorum and respect.
But it also has things in here like quorum.
Yes.
I don't think that it's a good idea to mix these kind of topics. I think it would be more neat if something is about quorum and something for decorum, that they're maintained separately.
I can break this into 2 resolutions. It's your decision.
Those are my thoughts. It's just that if this is for the public or this is for us, I think that they should be broken into 2.
I don't know.
Motion.
Made the motions, what do you think?
Well, we've had this in front of us for about 3 weeks, so I wish we would have brought this up last week or the week before, so we could have had a little bit more time to resolve the issue. I have no issue with breaking it up. I have no issue with it. I just wish it would have been brought up earlier.
Could I suggest if the board decides to say yes, let's break it up. Can we have the authority to go forward with the sign-in sheet and the informational packet, which is all about? It is separate from farm issues, et cetera.
Since I brought up the motion, and I can understand her piece as well, that, well, Mr. Arguello, do you have a problem with one of the pieces? Because if you don't have a problem with one of the pieces, there's no need to break it up. We're just gonna vote on it. But if you have an issue with a particular item, then it's worthwhile to break up and vote for the thing that you don't have an issue with.
I think so. Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. But yeah, I think that I mean, I'm not sure what the language has. Either 1, it may be redundant, or 2, it may be changing something that we have to abide by. And I just, I know it's been there for a while, but I haven't had the time to review it to the depth that I needed to in order to be able to vote with my conscience on this.
Okay, so then I revised my motion to split it up or not split up, split it up. So only address the component that has the sign-in sheet language revision. And then the pamphlet to be handed out will be tabled at the next board meeting.
Could I rephrase it for you?
Yes, sir. Yeah, you can probably do a little bit better than I can.
You would prefer to have a resolution that addresses the conduct of speakers and the informational item in the sign-in sheet, and then and we're authorized to go forward with that, and then a separate one that talks about how the board conducts its business at a meeting.
Yeah.
The quorum,
If
etc.
I made it clarify, just what applies to the board be separated and made whole, and then the part that applies to the public be separated for their understanding.
Did you agree
I-
to remove your second?
Not really. I do understand why you want to separate it. Like I see, you want to make sure that we have separate items to address those two things. However, the way that I interpret this document is, this is a public meeting. We are all going to perform these duties. That's the way I see it. So that's why I don't have an issue with voting it as is. And I also like the fact that we have the order of business, right? I think it's important for the public to understand why we are not discussing things that are not on the agenda the day that they come to talk about them, because they're not on the agenda, right? So I think it's a good informational piece for everyone. However, I'm respectful of you having the time to go ahead and review it, so I'm gonna go ahead and remove my second, so that we have time to ensure that Mr. Arguello and anybody else that needs to review it has time to review it.
Or you're seconding his
No,
revised.
she never removed her first and second, so we kind of backed up. The first and second are off the table, we're starting over.
So perhaps the motion should be to table the item. Is that fair?
I'll motion to
Table
table the item.
With the authority to use the new sign-in sheet and that, which has
All
nothing
right.
to do with this
Exactly,
and the
yeah.
information.
All right, we'll give you that authority.
I got confused, who made
Sorry.
You
It's
made,
a lot.
Sharing what was otherwise
you made the motion?
yes.
You second it?
I second it,
I have a
yes.
motion by Mr. Arguello, second by Ms. Castillo, to table the item with the authorization to continue on with the sign-in sheet portion of the agenda item. Any further discussion? You all right, Tanya? You gonna kill me? That doesn't look good.
Got it.
Okay. Any further discussion?
No.
Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, one
Do
other.
you have another comment? Go ahead.
Yes, next week I'm going to need to meet with each one of you individually on some, I could have two very significant issues to review with you in depth.
Okay.
And I'd like to do it individually, without violating the sunshine, but to go over it and then.
Touch base, and we'll all.
Do we do it by phone? Do we do it by phone, or does it have to be
I'd
in
like to
person?
meet you in person on, some of this is real complex.
Everything with you is complex.
Okay, that's fine. No action for us. Unfinished business, we don't have any.
Oh, my God, there was one other issue, I'm sorry.
Just passed you.
Mm-hmm.
I just had, I mentioned this to you, and I think one of people remember. We have received a letter from the Freedom from Religion Foundation challenging our opening prayer section. The law, given what we've been doing, I believe the law is correctly as they stated it. Before I give you a final recommendation to the chair and the board as to how to approach this, I want to have a conversation with them and then come back to you. This boils down to, as raised in the letter, they've tracked the meetings, and it is overwhelming that people offer their prayer and finish with, and in Jesus' name we pray. Now, there's a lot of people that have a different religious view in life. And the way the courts have looked at this when districts or anybody's been challenged in the public sector is they go back and look at all the prayers and say, yeah, you are doing X. So I want you to know it's out there.
Frank, if
What
I
is their
may,
ask?
Dr. Pace, have we rejected anyone from saying a prayer at any point? Has anyone?
No, sir, we have not. Is their ask to remove that portion or to be more inclusive of other faiths and or non-faiths?
So, some districts have gone to, we're gonna have a moment of silent prayer and just avoided it, or a moment of silence. What I wanna talk to them about is, what is their position if the district assures that there is a diversity of prayer, meaning,
Or moments of meditation or whatever
Muslim,
the case might be.
rabbi, et cetera. I want to see what they respond to on that. The chairman had a discussion with me about that. Is there an ability to do it that way? I want to see how they
I will
react
say
to
when
it.
I did, the only time that I've done the prayer, I did not say
I know,
in Jesus'
but-
name. So maybe, yeah.
Prior to this board, seated right here, the majority of prayers ended with, in Jesus' name we
Yeah,
pray.
whatever their ask is, I
Again,
guess is what we need to know.
we have not made a habit of excluding anyone from coming forward and saying a prayer in their own tradition, have we?
No, sir. One of
Has
the
anyone
challenge-
ever asked?
We welcome anyone who wishes to volunteer to say a prayer to contact Ms. Culver. You know, one of the challenges has been the ministerial associations aren't as strong and regular as they once were. So we kind of rely on,
So the doors are always open for someone to come.
Yes, sir.
Just figure it. I tell you, it is inherently against everything I believe in to say, hey, just remove this. So I gotta work through this, but I'm just letting you know it's out there, so you're all aware of it, and I'll talk with you all individually next week after I have this conversation.
When we stand, we have someone, regardless of denomination, and all of us collectively stand. I think each of us, in our own mind, at least I am, I'm talking to whoever that I am talking to, and regardless. I'm not trying to be insensitive at all, and like Mr. Ruggiero says, we're open door, we allow anyone to come in. And I'm gonna stand and be respectful, and I'm going to bow my head, and if I'm speaking to my creator or whoever, that I'm gonna be saying it to myself.
I will say this as a lawyer. I don't agree with these judges who have come up with these decisions that somehow, if somebody's offended by the comment, everybody loses their ability to do stuff. So I'm gonna see if I can't work it. That this board gets to continue its practice, and we'll just assure that there's
For the
no.
record, I don't mind that other faith. I would welcome it. In fact, I was going to suggest some other faiths to come in. So I personally
We
don't
could
mind it,
reach
so
out.
that is definitely not why I'm asking questions. I genuinely want to know what their ask is.
if any of you have contacts that you would like for us to explore, we would be happy to do so. Just get that information to Tanya or to me. Sure.
Their ask starting out is you eliminate prayer. And so I want to hear what they say to a couple of questions, which I'll review with you all.
See what you can, see
We
what.
may end up in a fight.
See what you can find, and then we'll determine. Anything else, Frank?
That's it.
Going
Thank you.
once, going twice?
Sorry, sir.
Oh, one the new business, anybody have anything? I've got one question for the board. We are allowed to have a security meeting with the law enforcement, we've done them in the past with like the police chiefs and the sheriff. I'm wondering if this is a good time to have a security meeting with them, not to talk about this case, but to talk about security in general, and maybe some of the comments that people made tonight, to have a discussion about that. Would y'all be interested in doing that?
Yes.
Everybody good with that?
Because I want to hear the good end. I want to hear both sides. I want to hear both sides.
No, we're not, it's not about that, it's about the
No,
overall.
I don't mean both. No, when I say both sides, because
Yes, I know what you mean, just want to be very clear.
yes, I don't mean.
Personally. So if I could, Dr. Pace, can y'all get with those three and see if we can find a time that works for all of us?
Does anyone have a better date or time? I mean, is it
I
like?
do.
Yes, ma'am.
So when are we leaving for Gainesville?
March the 3rd.
That's at night.
Yes.
Can we attempt, if it's okay with everybody, because I already asked for the days off, can we attempt to have it that morning, if possible?
The morning of the third before we go up.
We already have a board meeting the second, right?
And for the record, those are closed meetings.
Yes, of course.
We have expulsion hearings that day.
Oh, that's the reason why
We do
What
not have
time
a
is-
workshop prior to our meeting on the 2nd at 5:30. What if we tried to do perhaps a 3 o'clock meeting with them that day? Would be a closed session.
Okay,
I'm trying not to if that's a problem, we can work around it.
It's about the same day as the Tuesday the second, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If
we've
Mr.
already
Aguayo and
agreed.
Mr. Melendez are fine with the 3rd, before we leave for Gainesville, then certainly we could ask one of our other hearing officers to handle the expulsions that day.
I'm okay either way, just a bit flexible, I'm available the second before the board meeting.
I think Ms. Castillo, it'd be better for her on the third because of work. She's already off the third.
The day that we leave.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the day.
On the 3rd?
The day that we're already going
Yeah, in the
to.
morning.
I don't know if Dr. Pace is gonna be able to deal with the fact that we will miss our birthday. If you can handle that, Dr. Pace, I'm good on that morning.
We can do it after breakfast.
Yeah.
I have a meeting at 9:30 that's been set up for a little while. Is there any way that we could ask for maybe 10 o'clock on the? Wait, I'm sorry, I'm looking at February. I apologize. I'm so
We're still
sorry.
discussing March 3rd, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
we're
so
talking
March the
time.
3rd. I am fine. We'll try for that morning, after my meeting with Mr. Aguayo.
Perfect. And then see if it works for those guys. Now we may have to retry.
All right, so we'll try the 3rd. We'll work on that tomorrow.
In line with that, Mr. Chair, if I may, because I know that Ms. Lewis kind of resonated with a couple of us over here. I don't know what the board on that says, but, at least if Dr. Pace can at least have a discussion with her. And she was talking about having training for students too, not just, law enforcement side, doing some kind of compliance training with students and teaching them strategies and techniques, how to speak with authority. I think that has a valid point.
Actually, we've already had communication with our social worker group about establishing a peer mediation program at Liberty High School and then seeing if it was something that we'd want to spread to our other schools. As I mentioned, or shared with the board, I had a great meeting last Friday with members of the Black Student Union Executive Board, and that was something that the students had generated, that they would like to be able to work with their peers on how to better resolve conflicts. And also, Ms. Cruz is looking at how she could do some assembly trainings. And we have an assigned social worker at all of our high schools who are trained at providing this kind of counseling. In addition, the same youth mental health first aid training that staff members have gone through, that our SROs have gone through, we did a modified version with the student group at Harmony High School. And I think that is something that also we may want to consider for the students at Liberty. Happy to listen to what Ms. Lewis has to offer, but I just wanted to let you know that we were already capitalizing on the resources that we have through our mental health allocation from the state to start adding those additional components of support into the program there. I'm also asking our student services team to put together kind of a comprehensive one-pager for this board, because in the last 2 years, with the additional resources from the state specifically for mental health, we've added staff, we've added contracted providers in the community. I think there's a lot of work out there that perhaps we are not sharing our story well enough, that I want to make you aware of, and then you guys can provide direction for what other supports you believe we need based on what you're hearing from kids in the community. That would just be my ask right now.
Yeah, 'cause I just think that it's good, like, we have Alliance for Education through the community advisory, focus groups, we have a community relations staff. Sometimes it's nice to have an external person and say, hey, the way we're doing things is okay, or maybe they can look at things from a different perspective. So I just think that it's healthy in light of what's going on. The community obviously is concerned, and I just want to be able to alleviate that fear too, and that,
Absolutely. I'd just like to be able to share with you what we have, and then we talk about what we think we need to add, if that's okay.
Any other new business? This actually brings us to my favorite part of the meeting. And we have a student representative. This is his first meeting, Tristan. You had an interesting meeting to come to the first time. Is there any thoughts you have on the meeting or anything you'd like to share or ask the board or anything else? This is kind of your time for a little bit.
Yeah, so I wrote a little bit about my experience and some other things that I was expecting to come here and talk about. Maybe it was a little more laid back, but so I want to first thank everyone on the school board for allowing me to be here. It was a really cool experience, and I really honestly didn't know much about how this worked before I came here, so that was good. And I also want to applaud you guys on the COVID-19 protocols. As for Harmony High School, it's been really good. There's been not a lot of issues, so I think that you guys are doing a good job on that, so I wanted to bring that feedback. My commentary as it pertains to the recent events going on is going to remain light, as it is not the sole reason I'm here. But I do trust that our elected school board members to come together, recognize the problems to the extent that they occur, and make the best decision as possible in relation to your abilities. As someone who may never experience the same treatment as other students in my community, I encourage the board to try and place themselves in the shoes of marginalized students in our community that may be affected by our outcomes. To make it clear, I'm not taking a specific side or inflicting my own opinion, but simply recognizing the issue and its extent and understanding that the board will create a decision in the best interest of all of our students. This brings me to the topic that I was planning on speaking on a little tonight, which is mental health. Whether it ties into the recent events at Liberty High School or COVID-19 or just general issues that have been occurring before the pandemic and everything else, mental health needs to be discussed, I believe. As someone who's dealt with mental health issues and is friends with many who suffer from the same issues, I urge the board to look into this topic more extensively. I find that adults understand their youth less and less as time goes by, and while racial and viral issues are plaguing all of our lives, the effects on students is heightened, especially in the era of social media and rising academic pressure. I understand the board has a limited budget, but I encourage the members to find new ways or rearrangements in budgets to incorporate more mental health awareness and support in our schools. I also want to reiterate that there's also ways, in my opinion, that can benefit the mental health of our student body that are actually cost-free. I know of at Harmony there was a teacher, I didn't have her, but it was an English teacher. She did mental health Mondays, so she would show a video, off of YouTube or find a video that, inspired people, told them that they weren't alone, stuff like that. And I think that we really need that in these times. And so stuff like that are low cost, doesn't necessarily have to be implementing a huge program, but I think that's very important. So thank you. That's pretty much all I have to say.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Any
Thanks,
questions?
Good job. Great boy.
Very good.
Great boy.
Great thoughts, Tristan. And next week, like I said, is one of my favorite times in the meeting. The students that sit here oftentimes can sit through one meeting and are extremely insightful and kind of get what's going on. And I think it's probably an interesting meeting for you. We appreciate you being here. We look forward to seeing you 2 more times in the next 2 meetings. And thank you. I think we've kind of wrapped everything up and kind of rolled the board comments into the new business, or is there something else before we call it a night and adjourn?
I just appreciate the board really, this is obviously a difficult topic, and the fact that we're addressing it head on. I see all the board members, just being proactive, and I appreciate being part of the body that isn't hiding away from it, that we're actually addressing it head on. And thank you, Dr. Pace, too. I know you've been keeping us in the loop, and I feel like I'm very satisfied with the amount of information we're getting. Some things are limiting, but they're out of our control, but what are within our control, or what is within our control, we're doing something about it. I appreciate that, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Dr. Pace. Thank you, board. Thank you all for coming tonight. Thank you for all the people who addressed us and spoke. We appreciate it. And with that, we will stand adjourned. Thank you all. Thank you for the assistance.